Will there ever be a point where I follow a Kingdom Hearts video with another Kingdom Hearts video? Well, considering we got Sonic Mania coming out in less than a month, which you know is taking priority when it finally gets here, the next review after Kingdom Hearts 2 may or may not be 358 Days Over 2, but you never know, shit can happen. In this case, well, I got a review code from Activision alongside Cat Icarus, which I'm very grateful for. It's why we were able to make that collaboration as fast as we did. But when you get a code, it's required that both parties make their own video about the product, so that's how that works. The thing is, I was planning on making a video for myself anyway, since a lot of you guys were expecting me to follow up on my original Crash videos I did a couple of years back. And there's always a chance you may not even know what a Cat Icarus is. But if you'd like to find out, you can find a collaboration video in the card above.
You muppety malicious monkey!
He's such a nice man. I was very excited for this. As someone who basically grew up with the orange marsupial, to see him back like this, it was like... it's very much what I'm feeling now with Sonic Mania. Vicarious Visions are who we have to thank for this effort. Didn't recognize the name at first, but a quick look at their history and, oh yeah, I am familiar with their work, and this wasn't the first time they had their hands on the Crash franchise. They were responsible for pretty much all the Game Boy Advance Crash games, which I didn't play much of, but I do remember enjoying the Huge Adventure. Something to definitely revisit the next time I go back to the Crash series, because I already get enough requests for Wrath of Cortex, Twin Sandy, and all this other shit. Now, because I did do that collaboration with Caddy, and because at the end of the day, the Crash Bandicoot N.Sane Trilogy doesn't completely overhaul the original Crash trilogy that makes them completely separate games, I won't waste too much of your time here, and I'm sure you guys are getting enough exposure to N.Sane Trilogy as is. We're even doing a full playthrough of it over on my Let's Play channel. As I said in the video with Caddy, the N.Sane Trilogy is very much like the Super Mario All-Stars of the first 3 Crash Bandicoot games, where the core game is largely similar, the story is no different, but a number of adjustments have been made to make this collection the preferred way of playing these classics. The presentation has been greatly enhanced with a phenomenal graphic overhaul and extraordinarily clean sound design. It's really a case where the visuals speak for themselves. I mean, goddamn, the graphical gap between video games and 3D animated movies is getting smaller and smaller. My only complaint in this department would be the lighting. Sometimes it doesn't clash well at all with Crash's fur or eyeball, strangely, and at times Coco's hair looks like it's made of Play-Doh. But speaking of her, you can now switch between Crash and Coco at any time between all 3 games. It's merely cosmetic, but it's cool to see Crash's sister get in on the action and help her brother out. She even has her own variation of the Crash dance. It's a small thing, but something I think adds a ton of charm to 20-year-old games. Oh god, these games are over 20 years old. The Crash dance itself was changed a little. Instead of doing these pelvic thrusts, Crash now does this running in place routine, which looks cool, but near impossible to replicate in real life. That shit hurts my legs. The N.Sane Trilogy also brings some small gameplay adjustments that makes the 3 games more consistent with each other. And I think it's the most obvious with Crash Bandicoot 1. First off, you can now die and still get the box gem. That's just... This alone makes playing through Crash 1 a hell of a lot less stressful because you no longer have to worry about performing perfectly each and every single time you wanted to collect the gem. Of course, you never needed to collect all the gems to just simply beat the game, but it's pleasing to know that Vicarious Visions knows a bit of mercy, and fuck it, I already 100% the original Crash 1 more than enough times. I got nothing left to prove, goddammit, I just want to fucking relax! Sadly, this doesn't apply for the special colored gems. Those still require you to complete the stage without dying, so it's still old school in that regard. But it's not all bad, as the controls in Crash 1 have been tweaked a bit so that Crash doesn't feel as awkwardly heavy as he did previously. Now, personally, as someone who grew up with the original games, this took some getting used to, but I was able to adapt rather quickly, and it is overall a much better control scheme that's more in line with how Crash handles in the sequels. You can now save your progress at any time on the world map, meaning you no longer have to use a longer than normal password or collect a gem or ton of bonus tokens just to simply save the game. On the flip side, bonus rooms, such as the Tawna, Brio, and Cortex varieties, are now required to get 100% completion, but in this collection, you can retry the bonus rooms as many times as you like if you keep dying, and they don't count towards the death penalty if you're trying to get the colored gems, so again, less stressful and more consistent with the other games. However, for all the added tweaks in both gameplay and presentation, Crash Bandicoot 1 is still very much the same game underneath. And in case you didn't watch my original video on it, this game can get pretty difficult. Now, you'll get more than enough extra lives, but platforming can get, pardon the wordplay, insanely intense, especially in stages like Slippery Climb on one of the bridge levels, where it's not uncommon to lose up to a dozen lives because of how precise your landings need to be. This is what fucked me up the most personally. Don't get me wrong, these levels were tricky in the PlayStation 1 original, but here with the new graphics and hitboxes and all that shit, god, these are borderline bad. Just recently we got DLC in the form of Stormy Ascent, a level originally cut from the first game because it was considered too difficult. Too difficult in Crash 1, fucking hell. Now, being able to finally play it is really neat. It's cool that cut content can finally see the light of day after so many years, but holy shit. If you want a level that perfectly encapsulates the entire challenge of Crash 1 and cranks it up a notch, this is it. Extremely tight jumps, do or die scenarios, and it takes for fucking ever. Okay, that last one doesn't really sum up Crash 1, but I felt it needed to be said, and I'll be damned if I ever attempt to get the time trial relics for this. But yeah, relics were added to both Crash 1 and 2, but in Crash 1's case, damn, I don't bother because Crash 1 just wasn't designed to be blasted through. Compared to Crash 2 and 3, you don't have the slide, you can't slide jump as a result, there's no belly flop, no added abilities from Crash 3. In Crash 1, you just run and jump. Simple, but a lot of level design doesn't lend itself to the speedrun mentality with how many times you're required to stop and go. This is no doubt the best way to play the original Crash Bandicoot. I just don't see any reason to go back to the PlayStation version unless you're feeling nostalgic, but no matter what, it's still, for the most part, the original Crash Bandicoot with almost all of its ups and downs. I very much enjoyed this revisit, but what I was really anticipating was coming back to Crash Bandicoot 2 and Crash Bandicoot 3. I mean, I really don't want to repeat myself too much here. I love these games to death, and just about everything I adored is back, with everything looking remarkably better. The added moves, the more streamlined design, these are some of my favorite platformers of the 90s for a reason. Of course, because these are nearly note for note, that also means that these too come with all their trappings. The jetpack levels in Crash 2, still a piece of shit. You will never convince me that this control scheme was good. I just don't see it. In scenarios where you have to backtrack against the camera, it's just as bad now as it was then, and it wasn't fixed, I guess for the sake of being true to the originals, and some levels are still a nightmare when going for full completion, like Cold Hard Crash, or Digging It, or Future Frenzy in Crash Bandicoot 3. Those were not changed in the slightest. Okay, you can now see that dickhead of a box in the bonus room of Cold Hard Crash. So, yeah. There are a couple of things that feel a bit different than previously. The animals in Crash 2 and 3 don't quite have the same weight to them, but I'm also not sure if that's just the better animations fucking with me. Either way, it cost me a couple of lives because of mistimed jumps, but that's only because I played the earlier game so many times, so I don't think newcomers will have so much of an issue with this. The jet ski in Crash 3 though, I don't know what the fuck happened here. It's so heavy now, and you can't turn as tightly as before. It's the worst when I miss a box and have to sluggishly turn around to pick it up. They aren't so much of a problem when I'm speedrunning them for relics, but if there's one thing the original still has over the remakes, it's certainly these. For everything else, I mean, the motorcycle stages are about the same as before, which I wasn't a fan of previously, so But I guess that means if you enjoyed them, then you'll be happy to know they're pretty much the same here. The plane levels are exciting spectacles through the sky, and in the remake, the improved control makes it much better to aim and shoot with. At $40, the Crash Bandicoot N.Sane Trilogy is a great deal as you get 3 remade classics that help define the platforming era of the PlayStation 1. If you're looking for something a little old-fashioned and jam-packed with a lovable cartoon aesthetic that wouldn't be out of place in a 90s show for kids, Crash Bandicoot is what you're looking for. The thing is, if you weren't convinced beforehand, if say you gave the original trilogy a shot and weren't impressed, I would honestly be hard-pressed to say that the N.Sane Trilogy would change your mind. I mean, if the graphics were a sticking point for you before, then do you not see the level of detail here? Damn, these games look amazing, get on that shit. But if the core gameplay didn't exactly amaze you, well then the N.Sane Trilogy doesn't change much, so they still may not be what you're looking for in a platformer. I love them, but I obviously have a nostalgic bias, so of course I would say that. I even went and bought a physical copy of the game despite already getting a review code. I am very happy that this was even a thing, hence I wanted to show my support. Never in my life did I think Crash would get a revival of this caliber after so many years of meandering, and from what I've heard, this is selling incredibly well, and Activision is ready to revive the series if things continue to look up. As long as that means producing top quality games on par or even better than Crash 2 or 3, that's all I could ask for. But why stop there? I would love a remake of Crash Team Racing. Oh, that'd be amazing. And people are already clamoring for a Spyro remake. I wouldn't mind that. It would give me an excuse to finally finish the original game, so there's that. But before any of that happens, this has to do really well. So if you're interested, go buy it. Just go buy it now. But that's all the time I have for today. Again, I didn't want to waste too much of your time. If you would like a more in-depth review of the original games, you can find my old videos right here, as well as the Catacris collaboration. And once again, a special thanks to Activision for the review code. I greatly appreciate that. That said, it's about time I head back to Kingdom Hearts 2 and get that video done within the next week, hopefully. Thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care.